Hey everyone, I'm Madeline, and for my Astronomy Project 1, I'll be talking about surprising facts about the moon. We'll start with solar eclipses, when the moon completely covers the face of the sun. Now this works because from our perspective, the moon and the sun appear to be the same size, even though we know the sun is much bigger. Specifically, the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. And the strange part is that the moon sits at 1/400th distance between the Earth and the sun, which is why they appear to be the same size, but they only look this way from the Earth's surface. And just think about how improbable those numbers are. Almost as strange as that is the moon precisely imitates the annual movements of the sun each month. When the sun is at its lowest, the moon is at its highest, and vice versa. At the equinoxes, the moon and the sun set at the same point on the horizon, and at the solstice, they set at opposite points. Now, one of the oldest drawings that is complete and detailed of the moon was done by Leonardo da Vinci about 500 years ago. But there is one that is much older, from Neolithic times, 5,200 years ago. These carvings are found at a site called Knowth in the British Isles, and as you can see in the picture, the carvings match the markings on the full moon. This is just one section of carvings at Knowth. There are others that may match the moon at different times of the year. There's another bizarre one that was discovered in the 50s. The moon may affect Foucault pendulums. These are the pendulums that appear to be going in a circle, but what you're actually seeing is the rotation of the Earth underneath the pendulum. Now, back in the 50s, a scientist was measuring Foucault pendulums for a month. That month, there was a solar eclipse. When the eclipse started, the pendulum switched directions and started spinning the other direction. This phenomenon has been replicated successfully at many locations, including one underground. Sometimes, such as at one experiment in India, there have also been tiny drops in gravity. Now, this sudden change in pendulum movement may happen at the point where the sun-moon line intersects the Earth, but this has not been proven. This is one we've discussed a little bit in class. Every theory of the moon's creation still has holes. Darwin's molten Earth, co-accretion, impact capture, none of those work. The current popular theory is the giant impact, or the Big Whack, where a Mars-sized body collided with the Earth. The matter was ejected from both, it went into orbit and formed the moon. This explains why the moon's composition only partially matches the Earth, and why the moon doesn't have any of the heavier elements that the Earth does. But there are still several problems with this theory. First, the Earth isn't spinning fast enough to account for such a massive impact, and scientists still don't know what slowed it down. One guess is that there was another impact in the opposite direction, but this is very unlikely. Another problem is that the angle of the Earth doesn't match what the current theory would have done. Either this Mars-sized body was coming from fast and far away, or it was 3 times the size of Mars, but neither of these match the models. Another problem is that the Big Whack theory as it stands does not explain the relationship I described between the sun, Earth, and moon, all around this number 400, or why the moon is proportionally bigger compared to its host planet than any other moon but Charon. Now, scientists are pretty sure that some version of the Big Whack theory is true, but they don't have all the details yet. They don't have it right yet. Now, this one is probably the strangest one. The moon's gravity is not consistent. The Soviets discovered this the hard way with their Luna missions to the moon. They kept having crash landings until Luna 9, when they finally had a controlled landing on the moon's surface. And they discovered that this is because the moon's gravity varies from region to region. These variations are called mass concentrations, or mascons, marked in red in the image. These are places where dense material gathers near the surface instead of near the core. I believe an explanation has been put forward for this recently, but we don't have time to get into it now. Finally, the moon does have quakes, and it's actually because the moon is shrinking. The moon's core is slowly cooling, and as it cools, the moon shrinks, and then the crust wrinkles. But the crust is made of rock, so it can't just bend, it has to break. and then sections of crust are pushed up over each other. And the moon has actually shrunk from these thrust faults 150 feet over the last several hundred million years. Several moonquakes were detected during the Apollo missions in the 1970s, and they could still be happening today. Now, there is some weirdness between the moon and the sun and the earth and the megalithic yard, an ancient form of measurement, but we don't have time to get into that because it would be a video all by itself. So I encourage you to take a look at some of the articles or the book that I have listed here and in the description. Next time you go outside at night, take a look at the moon and think about everything we still don't know.